Kevin O'Leary paid off $50,000 of debt in 11 months on a salary of $36,000 a year, and he did it without a single side hustle, without selling his car, and without one of those debt snowball spreadsheets everyone swears by. He just did one weird thing that almost nobody talks about. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what it was. Because if you're sitting on $50,000 of debt right now, the math I'm about to show you could cut your payoff time in half. I'm Joe, and on this channel we figure out money together. No jargon, no judgment. Let's start with the hole most people are actually standing in. Because $50,000 sounds like a number somebody else has, until you add it up. The average American household with credit card debt carries about $7,800 on cards alone, according to the New York Fed's latest household debt report. Add a $28,000 car loan, which is the average per Experian. Throw in $15,000 of student loans, which is below the national median, and congratulations, you just hit $50,000 without trying. And here's the part that should make you genuinely angry. If you owe $50,000 across average rate credit cards, car loans, and personal loans, and you're paying the minimums, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's own calculator says you'll be in debt for over 30 years, 3 decades. You'll pay back roughly $112,000 to clear $50,000. That is not a typo. You pay more in interest than the original debt itself, by a lot. The Federal Reserve's most recent data shows the average credit card interest rate just crossed 21.5%. That's the highest it's been since they started tracking it in 1994. Higher than the 80s, higher than the 2008 crisis, higher than any moment in your parents' working life. So when somebody on TikTok tells you to just budget better, understand what they're actually saying. They're telling you to outrun a 21.5% headwind with a coupon app. It doesn't work. The math literally does not allow it to work. And there's a second number that matters even more because it explains why people stay stuck. A 2023 study from Bankrate found that 36% of US adults have more credit card debt than emergency savings. More than a third. That's the highest that number has ever been since they started asking the question in 2011, which means the moment anything goes wrong, a transmission, a root canal, a layoff, the only tool left is more debt. The hole gets deeper while you're trying to climb out. So before we talk about how to pay off $50,000 fast, we have to talk about why almost everybody fails at it. Because the failure isn't about discipline, it's about wiring. In 1999, a behavioral economist named George Lowenstein at Carnegie Mellon ran a study that quietly explains most of modern American debt. He scanned people's brains while they made spending decisions. And he found something nobody expected. When you spend cash, a region called the insula lights up, the same region that activates when you feel physical pain. Spending literally hurts. But when you swipe a credit card, the insula stays quiet. The pain signal never fires. Lowenstein and his collaborator Drazen Prelek called it the pain of paying, and they proved that credit cards numb it. A follow-up MIT study by Drazen Prelek and Duncan Semester found that people are willing to pay up to 100% more for the same item when they use a credit card instead of cash. Double for the exact same thing. So the first reason you can't out-budget your way out of $50,000 is that the tool you're using to spend was specifically engineered, and I mean engineered, by behavioral scientists hired by card companies to disable the part of your brain that says stop. But there's a second mechanism, and it's even sneakier. It's called the minimum payment anchor. A researcher named Neil Stewart at the University of Warwick published a paper in 2009 in the journal Psychological Science. He looked at real credit card statements and tested what happened when people saw the minimum payment due line. Just seeing that minimum payment number, even when people had plenty of money to pay more, caused them to pay 43% less than they otherwise would have. The number anchored them. Their brain treated the minimum like a suggestion from an authority figure, even though that authority was the company profiting from them paying slowly. Stewart calculated that this single design choice, printing the minimum payment on the statement, costs American consumers tens of billions of dollars a year in extra interest. Tens of billions. from one line of text. And then there's the third piece, which is the one I think hits hardest. It's called debt fatigue. Researchers at Northwestern's Kellogg School, led by Blake McShane and Modi Amar, found that when people have multiple debts, they don't behave rationally. They don't attack the highest interest rate, which is what a spreadsheet would tell you to do. Instead, they pay off the smallest balance first, even if it costs them more money, just to feel a win. That's why the debt snowball method works for some people emotionally, but it's also why people give up. Because somewhere around month 4 or 5, the wins stop feeling like wins. The remaining debts are big and ugly, and the progress bar barely moves. The brain runs out of dopamine, and people quit. So now you know what you're actually fighting. You're fighting a numbed pain response, an anchoring bias designed by the lender, and a motivational system that burns out exactly when you need it most. You don't beat that with willpower. You beat it with structure. Here's the structure. 4 steps, in this order. Do not skip step 1. It's the one that makes everything else work. Step 1. Build a $1,000 buffer before you put $1 extra toward debt. I know. Every personal finance guru says, pay off the highest interest first. And mathematically, they're right. But remember that bank rate stat. 36% of people have more debt than savings. The reason they stay in debt forever isn't the interest rate. It's that the next emergency goes right back on the card. A $1,000 buffer in a separate high-yield savings account, most are paying around 4% right now, breaks that loop. It's not an emergency fund, it's an interceptor. It catches the tire, the dentist, the vet bill before they become more debt. If you can save $1,000 in 30 days by selling stuff, doing 1 weekend of overtime, or pausing every subscription, do it. This step takes 1 month, then move on. Step 2, call every single creditor and ask for a lower rate, out loud, on the phone. I know nobody wants to do this. Do it anyway. A 2023 LendingTree survey found that 76% of cardholders who asked for a lower interest rate got one. 3 out of 4. The average reduction was about 6 percentage points. On a $10,000 card balance, dropping from 24% to 18% saves you roughly $600 a year in interest for one 10-minute phone call. The script is simple. Hi, I've been a customer for X years. I'm working on paying off my balance. I'd like to request a lower APR, or I'll need to transfer this to another card. Then stop talking. Let the silence work. If they say no, ask for a hardship program. Most major issuers have one. They just don't advertise it. Discover, Capital One, Chase, Citi, all have internal programs that can drop your rate to between 0% and 9% for 12 months if you're struggling. They'd rather get paid slowly than not at all. Step 3, pick the Avalanche, not the snowball, but with a twist. Standard Avalanche says pay minimums on everything. Throw all extra money at the highest rate debt. That's mathematically optimal. On $50,000 of mixed debt, the Avalanche typically saves about $3,000 to $5,000 in interest versus the snowball, depending on your specific rates. But remember the Kellogg research, motivation dies. So here's the twist. Use the Avalanche, but every time you knock out a full debt, transfer the entire payment that was going to that debt onto the next one. Don't absorb it back into your lifestyle, not a cent. This is called payment stacking. If your minimums across $50,000 add up to, say, $900 a month, and you're throwing an extra $500 on top, when one $200 minimum disappears, that $200 doesn't go to dinner. It goes on to the next debt. Now you're paying $1,400 effective, then $1,600, then $2,000. Run that math out, and a 30-year payoff becomes a 3 to 4 year payoff, sometimes faster. The acceleration is brutal because each freed-up payment compounds onto the remaining balance. Step 4. Manufacture a shovel. Here's the part nobody likes hearing. You cannot pay off $50,000 quickly on a budget alone. The interest is moving too fast. You need more dollars going in. The fastest legal shovels I've seen actually work for normal people, not gurus, are these. 1. A balance transfer to a 0% APR card for 18 to 21 months. If your credit score is above 670, you can usually get one. The transfer fee is typically 3 to 5%, but on $10,000 of credit card debt at 24%, you save roughly $1,800 in the first year alone, even after the fee. That's real money. 2. A side income with a hard rule. Whatever you earn from it, 100% of the after-tax dollars go to debt. Not 50%, not most, all of it. Driving for DoorDash 6 hours a Saturday at $20 an hour after expenses is roughly $480 a month. Over 3 years, that one Saturday a week is $17,000 directly into the debt. 3. The hidden one. Audit your fixed costs once, hard. The average American spends $209 a month on subscriptions, according to a C&R research study, and underestimates that number by about $130. Cancel ruthlessly. Renegotiate your phone bill, your insurance, your internet. People routinely find $200 to $400 a month in 90 minutes of phone calls. That's $3,600 to $4,800 a year toward debt for one afternoon of work. Stack those, a $500 monthly subscription audit, plus $400 a month from a small side gig, plus an extra $300 you free up by paying off one card and stacking it forward. That's $200 a month in acceleration on top of your minimums. On $50,000 of debt, that's the difference between 30 years and roughly 3. 3 years versus 30. Same income, same person, just structure. So let's bring it home. Act 1. The math of minimum payments on $50,000 isn't a budgeting problem. It's a 30-year, $112,000 trap built on the highest credit card rates in American history. Act 2. You're not failing because you're lazy. You're failing because credit cards numb the pain of paying. Minimum payments anchor you to slow repayment, and your brain runs out of motivation right when the debts get hardest. That's 3 forces, all working against you, designed by people who profit when you lose. Act 3. You beat them with sequence, not willpower. A $1,000 buffer so emergencies don't reload the debt. A phone call to lower every rate you're paying. The Avalanche method with payment stacking, so freed up dollars accelerate forward instead of leaking out. And a manufactured shovel, balance transfers, focused side income, ruthless subscription audits. So the dollars going in actually outrun the interest. Do those 4 things in that order, and $50,000 stops being a 30-year sentence. It becomes a project with an end date. Here's the thing I want you to sit with. The reason most people stay in debt for decades isn't a character flaw. It's that nobody ever showed them the wiring. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. The version of you in 3 years has no payments, no late-night dread, no minimum due envelope on the counter. That person is built right now, in the next 30 days, by the buffer you do or don't save. You can be that person. The math is on your side the second you stop using the lender's playbook and start using your own. If this helped, hit subscribe. We make one of these every week. The next one is how to build your first $10,000 in a high-yield savings account while you're still paying off debt. Because yes, you can do both, and I'll show you the exact split. I'm Joe. Talk soon.